All right. So I know that this will be the first time that we've done notes this way, but I'm going to try to keep it as similar to what we would have done in class as possible. So instead of you listening and watching the slideshow to take notes and filling in the blanks, you're going to be watching this, listening and paying attention, and there's going to be questions that you're going to be answering throughout these notes that I'm going to give you now. So you do need to be paying attention. So pay attention if you want to write down your own notes as I go along, that's fine. Be paying attention because these questions will come back later on for our upcoming project and for future reviews in the next couple weeks. So we just got out of our last unit, which was oil in Texas. So we had this huge boom and bust cycle. So oil was becoming produced in Texas, and it's going to end up being overproduced. And that's what we're going to get into. So this next era that we're getting into is the Great Depression and the New Deal, and how the New Deal tried to fix some of the Great Depression problems. So this first picture that you'll see, this is just one picture of one situation that happened. And at the bottom right here, if you see where my cursor is, this is a link to an article that gives you more in-depth knowledge of what was actually happening with this situation. So the stock market crash in 1929 happened in late October of that year. The stock prices were inflated higher than they should have been. So the prices were higher than what they were actually worth. Businesses were overproducing and taking on too much debt. So in Texas, we're going to end up producing a lot of oil, okay? And then we're going to take on so much debt and not be able to pay it back. The stock prices are going to begin to fall dramatically on Monday 28th and Tuesday 29th of October of that year. Stockholders are going to lose almost, if not all, of their money. Okay, so people are going to be broke at this point. They couldn't repay loans to the banks, so the banks had to go out of business as well. Banks are trying to loan out money and then get that money back, but people aren't able to make money to pay the banks back. So the banks are going to go out of business too. During this, billions of dollars are going to be lost, from banks to the government to individual people. It's going to be a lot of money. So the stock market crash leads to the Great Depression happening. This happens from 1929 to 1939, and it begins after the stock market crash. Issues revolving around supply and demand from the overproduction of oil, gas, and agricultural products impacted the Texas economy during the Great Depression. So we've talked about supply and demand last unit in class, and how the prices of products go up and down depending on how much product you're making and who actually wants the product. So how many people actually are in demand of your product. The supply and demand in Texas is going to be affected because the overproduction is going to lead to price decrease. So let me say that again. The supply and demand is going to be affected in the Texas economy because of the overproduction leading to a price decrease on products. Okay, so supply and demand during this time period is going to lead to the overproduction leading to price decrease. Prices declined and economic growth slowed. Falling crop prices were a result of the weak economy on Texas farmers who expanded production in the 1930s. Okay, so these prices on crops are going to fall tremendously. It's going to hurt a lot of Texas farmers during this time. So something else that happened during this time period that's going to affect Texas is the Dust Bowl. The Great Depression in Texas was especially damaging to the agricultural sector because of the severe drought. Okay, so drought meaning there's not enough rainfall. Okay, there's very, very small amounts, if any, of rainfall happening. Okay, Going through the plant cycle in science, you know that most plants need at least some kind of regular water to grow. So these agricultural farmers aren't being able to grow what they need to. The Dust Bowl was parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, and parts of Texas. It was a combination of drought and soil erosion, creating enormous dust storms starting in 1930. I'm going to try to play this really quickly. We don't need the sound. I just want to show you what you may have seen during this. So you're not going to have all of the buildings, but you are going to have this huge dust storm that's going to engulf a lot of homes and farms. Okay, so this is what the dust storms would have similarly looked like. So let's continue on. The dust storms are going to affect states outside of the Dust Bowl as well. The dust storms affected large parts of Texas. And then the severe erosion part of the Dust Bowl led to many farmers abandoning their land because they didn't have good soil, because all of that had been taken away in these dust storms. They're just going to abandon their lands. They're going to try to go somewhere else where they can have substantial soil so that they can start growing and making money again. So farmers who couldn't grow crops to sell lost their farms to banks. Many North Texas farmers gave up and moved west to California. So how the Dust Bowl affects the economic development in Texas is because many farmers are going to lose their farms to banks. So the Dust Bowl and how it is affecting the Texas economy, because we have so many farmers, these farmers are going to end up losing their farms to banks. So that's how the Dust Bowl is going to affect Texas economically. So Texas acted to manage problems arising from the Dust Bowl in the 1930s by planting new trees and vegetation to prevent erosion. Farmers adopted techniques to conserve soil and reduce erosion in response to the Dust Bowl. Some of these things that they're going to do are going to be crop rotation, terracing, and contour plowing. So crop rotation doesn't mean growing your crops in a circle, okay? This is rotating what kind of crops you're growing. So instead of just growing corn all year long, you're going to grow corn for part of the year, that wherever the season is for that. And then you're going to grow something else. And then when that's done, you're going to grow something else so that the soil isn't getting used to one thing, because the soil needs that change. Some of these crops are only going to go a little bit under the surface. Some are going to need their roots to go much further down, which is going to keep that soil rotating. Terracing, if you see in this video, and you can watch this on your own time, it's that leveling of the soil. And then there's contour plowing. So these are ways that Texas is going to try to help manage this problem that arises from the Dust Bowl. So the Great Depression happens, and the president at the time was Franklin Roosevelt, and he's going to start this New Deal. So in 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt creates a series of programs designed to help America cope with and recover from the Great Depression. These new laws and programs are to create jobs and improve the economy. So he's going to try to help Americans out and kind of reverse the Great Depression as much as possible. So he's going to enact several different administrations and several different associations that are going to try to help bridge that gap of people not having jobs or not having money at all. So one of those was the Workers' Progress Administration. This put people to work constructing roads and public buildings. This also employed artists, musicians, writers, actors, and directors in a large arts, drama, media, and literacy projects. So it's finding jobs for people in any way that they can. The next one is this Public Works Administration. This is going to build large-scale public works, such as workers working on dams, on bridges, at hospitals, and building schools. The Agricultural Adjustment Administration is going to try to reduce agricultural production by paying farmers subsidies not to plant on part of their land and to kill off excess livestock. So if you have an abundance of livestock or animals, reducing that number so that they're not killing the soil or any of the crops as well. So this last one that we definitely need to know is the Civilian Conservation Corps. This relief program gave millions of young men employment on environmental projects. It was considered to be one of the most successful programs. The CCC helped to shape the national and state park systems that we still have today. So this Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC, is associated with the Great Depression era during Texas history. Okay, this was a huge program that happened during the Great Depression in Texas history. So the New Deal in Texas. Texas politicians are going to embrace the New Deal as a political solution to the Great Depression. Politicians are going to be on board and they're going to try to implement the New Deal as much as possible. The New Deal programs changed the lives of Texans during the Great Depression because thousands found employment building roads and bridges. So again, thousands of people are going to find employment during the Great Depression building roads and bridges, okay? That is going to be huge for changing these lives of Texans. So please remember that as well. Okay. And that is the end of this one. So hopefully that went well. And please give me feedback on what I can change and what y'all need help with.